I'm sensing some tension. And I think names just come to mind.
Haley.
Fuck off, Gemma.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Haley, what's going on? Haley? I think there's something here.
Haley, stop fucking about, please.
I swear it wasn't. We have to keep going. No.
Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live, and it is my honor and pleasure today to welcome our very special guest from one of the top-rated horror movies of 2020, Haley Bishop. Haley, thank you so much for being here with us. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, John. This is very exciting.
Oh, it is very exciting, and I gotta say, seeing you in this format on the screen again, you don't have any virtual seances being planned or anything, right? Because
well, you never know. I mean, we'll see how this chat goes and what we get up to. But luckily, at least I'm in a different apartment now, so it's not the haunted one.
A lot, we'll have a little bit more toned down of a session here. Now, what's never explained in Host, and this has always been curious for me, is what prompted you to do that seance? We never get to find this out in the movie, but did Haley lose somebody? Or is it something that you like exploring?
So there's a couple things I can't say because they have to be kind of left secret in case of a sequel. But I would say the character has, she's friends with Salen. She's done these kind of seances before. I think there's probably some loss there that she was trying to connect back with. But it's just, she would have had a good time with it. I mean, I personally like the idea that there's like ghosts and an afterlife and, something else is out there. I just think it's entertaining and fun. So I think that was what kind of actually led that my character was the one who wanted to be involved and be like, yeah, let's get together and like do something kind of different and wild. And they were just bored. They'd been on way too many pub quizzes at that point. So it was a way to mix it up.
Yeah. And being stuck in quarantine, it fell perfectly. I was wondering, did Selah, who was the medium that we never got to see, you think she advised Haley, hey, you better make sure your friends are completely on board with this and take this seriously, or some bad stuff can happen?
Oh, definitely. There would have definitely been a chat of like, hey, take this seriously, treat it like you would any other session, because you just never know what could come through. I mean, we did a real seance, actually, which I think has ended up on the DVD or the Blu-ray with a medium that Rob, the director, knows. And she actually said that, because it was over Zoom, that we would have been totally safe and it was most likely that nothing would be able to kind of come through because we weren't holding hands. And so we kind of played the opposite of that with the film.
Okay, gotcha. I got a question for you now. You're the one person, the actress in the movie, who comes across, well, you don't speak with a British accent. You come very American, So when I actually messaged you a couple of weeks ago, I was very surprised to hear that you do live in the UK. So how did you end up in the UK?
Sure. So I am American. I'm originally from Arizona, but I came out here in 2014 to do my master's at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama in a MA Acting for Screen program. And so that's a year-long program, really great. If anyone listening is an actor, highly recommend. But I did the year, and actually at the end of that year is where I met Rob and Jed, because we did the short film Dawn of the Deaf as part of my master's thesis, and not my thesis, my master's program. They kind of came in with the film and had to use us as actors. And Dawn of the Deaf, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it went on to like over 200 festivals and went to Sundance and just did exceptionally well. That I, at the end, like when my visa essentially was ready to come up with school, I decided I wanted to stay in England because I had made some really nice connections here and had a great time working on that film. And and made some friends. And I thought, oh, actually, it's probably better for me to stay here as an actor than to go back to LA, where, you know, I'm more of a dime a dozen in the sense that my American accent doesn't have as much charm.
Yeah, in fact, I got to tell you, you are my first interview, and I can't remember how long, with somebody who is not in LA. Is that where you met? Because we know that you guys all in the movie. First of all, you guys all use your real names, and I've read that you're all friends in real life. Is that where you met, like Gemma and Radina and Caroline and Alan and the rest of them?
So Radina and Caroline and I all did the same program together. So we all met that year. And then Gemma was actually the year above us. So she had already graduated, but the program kind of keeps you connected with, you know, different classes, different years. So we had met Gemma that year while she was producing one of the films that we were in. And then we'd met Jed and Rob through Dawn of the Deaf. And actually a lot of the team worked on Dawn of the Deaf. Surprisingly, Alexi, our costume designer, was on that film. Steve Bray, who does VFX, was on that film. I'm sure other little people that were on Host were actually pulled from Dawn of the Deaf, because we kind of made that film, and that was a real labor of love and stuck together. And then Emma she actually met Jed at Comic-Con, I think maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. And then Jed's first directorial debut is a film called Multiplex, which he shot 2 years ago, a short film that Emma is the lead in that. And then he used all Gemma, myself, Radina, and Caroline all in Multiplex. And so then we got to meet Emma. And so Emma was kind of integrated into the group. And we've just stayed this kind of bundle of filmmakers that have, become friends as well as colleagues over the last 5 years.
That's fascinating, and it culminated into this amazing movie. So the movie was written by Rob Savage, Jed Shepard, and another Gemma, right?
Yeah.
Now, who came up with this concept? Whose idea was it first?
The initial idea was Jed's. So Jed and Rob have kind of worked as a writing team for a little while now. And Jed, the story goes that Jed, Shudder had approached Rob because they wanted to see if he wanted to make a longer film based off of the prank video we did. And so he, told Jed about that, and Jed texted him, I think at like 4 a.m. one night, Zoom seance. And so that was like the seed was then planted and then grew into what is now Host.
That's brilliant. It's just brilliant. When you guys were actually shooting it, we all know it was done through Zoom, but did you guys really use a Zoom session, or was the Zoom overlay added on later?
So we did. I mean, a little of both. We did use the Zoom to film, but we used iPhones that were Velcroed to the back of our laptop. So the setup was basically, because we were in quarantine and in full lockdown when we started shooting Host, Doug, our producer, and Rob couldn't come over to anyone's homes. We couldn't interact with each other. So the way we've kind of worked around that was they were on Zoom with us, where they would kind of mute their video so that it acted almost like a video village. And then we lined up our iPhones that we were given. So the iPhone camera was just above the computer cameras. So they were basically the same, so that, Rob and Doug could see essentially what we were filming, but we did use the footage from the iPhones just because they were better cameras and a little bit higher quality. My laptop is 2015, so like it's not the iPhone 11 camera anymore. So we used that, and then Zoom were kind enough to let us use their features and have the full kind of Zoom package that our editor wasn't able to layer on top of the actual final film and all the footage that she cut together, which Brenna, the editor, is a wizard, that she basically cut 7 films together and then put all that on with the special effects VFX artists in the end.
Well, Zoom must be loving it. I'll tell you that much. Now, in your opinion, without revealing too much, in case there is a sequel, first question, do you guys think you were haunted by a demon or just vicious human spirits?
I think personally that it was a little demon. Not a little demon, maybe he's a big demon, who came through, but took the form of what Gemma created, that story she made up about Jack. I think he manifested that but I think it was a demon. I think we brought something forward, which maybe we need an exorcism in the sequel.
Do you guys think it was? Do you think this is all your opinion now that I'm asking? Do you think it was the same entity going to all of you, or was there more than one entity targeting different people?
Ooh, I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Good question. I like to think that it was just the one, that it was one who kind of, because it's a demon and they have supernatural abilities, they could just zip over. And, maybe because of the way technology works, how quickly we can communicate with each other in a text, he could just instantly pop over through the computers. Maybe that's what was working.
And what's great about the movie is when I first watched it, I'm like, okay, it's definitely a demon. But then as I was rewatching it, I've seen it like 3 times now already. The person hanging seems to be a theme. When they go up into the attic, you see the feet, and then the feet disappear, dangling off the floor. And then remember that shot when you're taking the Polaroid, and it's it was brilliantly done because you go to the rest of the group, do you see that? And we can't see it until you take that Polaroid, and we look at the Polaroid, and then again you could see the outline of somebody who is hanging. So I love how they did that, because it does leave the question open of, is this a demon, or is this somebody who possibly committed suicide that was brought over because of the seance looking for revenge? If there is a sequel, there's so many different ways to take it. It's beautiful.
That is kind of the nice thing, is it's like, I think the fan theories and ideas that have sparked like that from the film, like they've outlived our wildest dreams, where we're like, we didn't even potentially consider specifically what the demon was while we were shooting it, because, it was just such a quick turnaround. And now now we're open to a lot of possibilities for a sequel or for a future film. And it could very well be that it was. I mean, I hope not. I hope my apartment was fairly new, so who knows? But funny
was that
story.
Actually your apartment you were living in?
Yeah. So that was our. Everybody filmed in their own homes because we had no choice really, because we were in lockdown #1, and so we weren't supposed to be leaving and going on location. And so kind of the beauty of Host and how it worked was that we were just in the comfort of our own homes, and had spent time with Rob before filming, walking around our houses to find things that were creepy, and which stays with you once you finish, and you're like, oh, I can't really leave all the lights off anymore.
Now, Shudder is a huge company. It's owned by AMC. It's a huge company. How did they feel? Well, whose idea was it for the 56-minute runtime?
I think that was Rob and Jed and Doug and Gemma. I know so when they first finished filming and we sent all the footage over, they had a ton of footage, because we spent, we would run really long takes. We would do everything, all the dialogue is improv. So they did have a lot to choose from. And so I think the initial first cut was actually an hour and a half. And that was like, oh, we've trimmed it to an hour and a half. But the goal, I remember the guy saying, was because the Zoom free service is only 40 minutes, they wanted to keep it actually as close to 40 minutes as possible. And the fact that my character was too cheap to upgrade. So essentially her death is on her own fault for not upgrading to Zoom Pro.
How did Shudder react to the time? The length of 56 minutes? Did they say, come on guys, can't you make this at least 89 minutes, or were they totally cool?
They were amazing. From what I've heard from the guys and just interacting with like Emily and Sam from Shudder, they gave them so much creative freedom and gave us all just the creative freedom to play, that I think even the initial cut they were had very few notes for. And then when Rob and Doug trimmed it down to the 56 minutes, one of the things Rob is great at as a director and as a filmmaker is like, he is ruthless. He will cut scenes. He will run a scene long if it needs to be until he gets exactly what he wants. And he will cut stuff that just doesn't serve the film. And so I think they could have run it along for an hour and a half and had a lot more in the beginning. Like we had backstories to characters and relationships between the characters and jokes and whatnot that never made it into the film because it wasn't serving the purpose and the pace of the film. And so I think they really landed on the 56 minutes because that was just enough time to really keep, the audience engaged, but without having to drag too much out. That potentially, if it had been longer, the film wouldn't have had the success it has.
The way I see it is, it's an hour and a half movie with the 30 minutes of fluff, or that's what I call it, fluff, removed. And you get straight to the vital, important scenes. Now, you do explain how you all knew each other, Rob, you, Gemma. Was there anybody that had to audition, or somebody that was brought in that was from outside the group?
Yes. So I don't think he had to audition, but Teddy was the only one who we didn't actually know. He is part of Lucky 13 Action and a good friend of Nathaniel Martin and Matt, who are the stunt coordinators. And so Rob approached Nathaniel and said, we have this gag where we want to set someone on fire. Do you know anyone? And he said, I know the perfect guy. Teddy, he's really personable. He's really funny. He's, wonderful actor as well as a stunt performer. And so Teddy was brought in, I think initially because he has been trained with fire safety, but then day one, second one of meeting Teddy, I think all of us were a little bit in love with him. Bless him. He called each one of us individually just to have a quick chat to get to know us because he knew the group was, quite a tight knit group that he was coming into. And we welcomed with open arms. And he's now it feels like he's been here the whole time. So he was probably the only one who the group didn't know. And then I guess Salen as well. Very similar thing with Salen where I think Rob had worked with her before. And so he needed to cast a medium to play, this part. And funny thing, actually, everyone except me was told that she was a real medium the whole time. So she had to she would pretend and do her scenes. And all the girls would always, try and be super polite and apologetic that they were, mocking maybe her actual profession. And her and I would just be texting on the side in the Zoom private chat function. Jokes to each other about how serious everybody was taking it. And it wasn't until we finally wrapped filming, and I think actually it wasn't until we watched the final film that they told the rest of the girls that Salen was an actor.
Okay. I love asking this question to my guests. When you're filming it, it's a movie, you got people around you. Did it scare you watching the final product?
Oh, absolutely. I can't, because I don't know if you know this or if the listeners know this, but so the scriptment we got actually had everybody's death redacted so that we wouldn't know how anyone died as we were filming it, so that we could react to things in real time. So after your character is gone, none of us knew anything about the film, what happened. So as soon as my character, dies at her first death, essentially, I didn't see any of Teddy's death. I didn't see anything that happens to Emma. I don't see anything until I pop back up at the very, very end. Mm-hmm. And so I still find watching Teddy's scenes and every time the demon kind of pops up and even that very end bit where I'm walking down the hallway and I know I'm okay, watch the countdown and then close your eyes. And I think I've only seen the end of the film maybe one time because it scared me so much.
Well, I got a great story about the ending, the last second of the film. I had already watched it and my executive producer, who was also my brother, came to town. I'm like, you got to watch this movie. So I made him watch it and we were watching it. And we get to the end, and I've seen the movie. I know exactly what's coming. But when I saw that last second scene, that it ends on a jump scare, mm-hmm. That last scene, I screamed like a 5-year-old boy, like a child. Yeah. It scared me, and I knew what was coming, and it just freaked me out. And my brother thought I was pranking him. I'm like, no, that really freaked me out. Were you guys involved when the script was being written by Rob and company? Were you guys kept in the loop in the writing process? For example, the title host. What did you guys think of that? Did you think it was too open-ended? It could be anything, or how did they explain it to you?
I think the title I remember hearing the title and I think everybody was like, yes, perfect. That is like that's the best way to just sum it up. I'm a big fan of one word titles.
Mm-hmm.
So punchy. And it just made sense. Like host can be, obviously the host of the Zoom call. Host is, something taking over another person's body. Like
Yep.
it has so many double meanings and triple meanings, that it seemed very fitting and was a good kind of punch to it. I think the initial, like another title might have been Zoom. And I know it's been called Zoom in Japan. But host just felt sinister in a way,
Mm-hmm.
which was good. And then the writing process, I remember we worked a bit with Rob and Jed. We did this initial seance, and that was the first time we all met the writer Gemma Hurley, because Rob and Jed know a lot of us very well. It's actually hard for them to probably be impartial as far as like pulling bits out of our personalities and where we would fit in the story. And because we're all such good friends, had it just been us, being friends on screen, getting haunted by a demon, it probably would have still been a very boring film, because we're all very nice to each other and love each other very much. And so we did this seance, and Gemma Hurley kind of was there and observing all of us and kind of picking bits of our personalities. I think that we could use as a character type and really push and run with, which then created all the dynamics that you see on screen. And then we were sent the initial scriptment, which was, it's beat sheet, really, not beat sheet, but it's bullet points where, okay, this happens here, and we would like this to happen here, and your character is going to start this way, and then by the end of the scene, they feel this way. Or your scare level is going to go from a 1 to a 4 by the end of the scene. And so it was then up to us to then improv the dialogue and figure out how we were going to get to this point. And so they were able to then, I think, incorporate that stuff into the second draft to be like, okay, what worked, what didn't, and then the third, maybe it was, I'm trying to think, I don't actually know how many drafts of the scriptment there were in the end, but I feel like no more than 3,
Okay.
just timing-wise.
Now, how long did it take to shoot from, first take till wrap?
So we did the shooting, I think in total was about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we did all the stunt work first. The first, weekend, luckily lockdown was lifted just slightly, that we were able to work if we needed to. And so we had the stunt team go to everybody's, places where they were doing stunts, or the stunts were, shot the first weekend. And then we shot solidly for a week, every day, normal shoot schedule. And then I think we did a couple days in the weekend, and then a couple pickup days, and then a couple ADR days. But in total, I know from initial conception to delivery was 12 weeks in total, so which includes all the post and editing and whatnot. So it was a very fast turnaround.
Now, this is very different from, let's say, an independent film, because this was sanctioned by Shudder. Was the film shown in any festivals? Or because Shudder had it, they had the exclusive rights, it went straight to Shudder?
No, initially it was dropped on Shudder. Just they obviously had the rights to it, but then because of the success of the film on Shudder and the fan base that grew, it's been now. I mean, it's had international release in. I know it was in Croatia and Brazil and Mexico, and it's in Japan and I think in Indonesia. And we keep hearing every other day it's in different countries now, which is incredible. And then it has been in a few festivals. I'm terrible. I can't actually name them off the top of my head, but we had a fairly big horror festival in Portugal that they did a big screening of, and we did a Q&A with afterwards. And I think it's still going to have potentially a little bit of a festival run. I'm not 100% sure, because it's now being released in theaters and on Netflix and, making its way around the world. I'm not sure how that will react with the festival circuit, but
yeah,
we're hoping.
I put Host in the category of movies where, it gets released, you get, it gains interest. But I think it's just one of those movies, as the months wear on, it's just going to keep growing in popularity and keep growing and growing and growing. And I would actually be surprised if there isn't a sequel, because from what we see, you and Gemma are still alive by the end of the movie. Because that's what we're left with, assume. I mean, it doesn't look good for you guys on that last scene, but you're
But you
still
don't see us die. You
Yeah.
don't technically see us die.
Exactly. You are still alive. What would you say was the most challenging part about filming for you?
Ooh, the most challenging part, I think I've got two. So, I mean, the doing this stunt was really physically challenging because I've never done any stunt work before, and so that took a day of throwing my body on the floor and making sure I was arranging myself properly so that I could be dragged out a hallway and just doing that over and over and over again and trying to keep the same energy every take. And Rob likes to do a lot of takes, and so we definitely did it until it was perfect, essentially. But then also because we were shooting from our homes, and you didn't have a full crew or even any crew really available to us. There was an initial learning curve in the beginning, just for setting up the equipment and making sure the lighting is correct, and then figuring out how to send the footage correctly without deleting it, which I did at points. Unfortunately, nothing terrible though. And so just that kind of initial, like, making sure you had all your ducks in a row before you even started doing the acting part was always a little bit challenging for the first couple days, and then you get used to it. And because we were a team of friends, any mistakes that did happen were kind of just, okay, that's okay. Let's fix them and figure out a solution rather than, oh no, all is lost. But yeah, trying to be a film crew and an actor at the same time, it made me really appreciate even more than I already did everybody on set that goes into making a movie.
Oh, absolutely. You said stunts. That kind of surprises me because we see you getting dragged from the floor, but from your camera's perspective, they actually dragged you while you were holding your mobile device to make it that realistic?
No, so the phone did stay attached to the computer, luckily. Otherwise, that would have been probably way above my pay grade. But I did have to be dragged many times, and my partner, luckily, he is, has a bag of ropes from climbing days and scaffolding days in our apartment. So he had to run down our hallway many times, dragging me on that chair.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, I loved doing it, but it does physically drain you after a while.
That scene that I played at the opening of this episode where you get like moved 10 feet back on the chair, was that just, somebody had the chair tied in the back, and when the time came, they just yanked you back?
Oh, yes. So that was a rigging up the chair well enough and making sure that I, made my counterweight perfect so that I didn't fly off the chair. And then my poor boyfriend having to run full speed. Luckily, the house had that long hallway, but full speed down the hallway over and over and over again. And of course, every time Rob is like, can we just get a little faster? Maybe just like a little bit faster to like, it was, to the point where like, that's it. That's as fast as we can go, without essentially him probably losing a leg or something.
Yeah, I'm sure you were hoping, God, let's just get this on one take so it can be done with.
Yeah.
Any special mental preparation you had to do for the role of Haley? Well, you are Haley, but you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah. I worked actually with Rob and Gemma individually. The three of us essentially did a little character prep because Gemma is a good friend of mine. It's hard to yell at your friend when you're not mad at them or they've done nothing really wrong. Yeah, I'd actually found that quite challenging. I was like, I don't know what's a mean thing to say to someone. Like, I'm not used to screaming at people. So we did a lot of prep to the three of us together to try and figure out those dynamics, and then I went off and did kind of my own character backstory and tried to like create that dynamic of why she and Gemma don't get along and what is it about her that grinds my gears. And then we just said the scenes we had to do where we do watch our friends die on screen, that took a lot. It takes a lot of energy to cry that much and for that long and to be in that state of hyper stress. So there was a bit of kind of prep before those scenes just to make sure that we were hydrated and we kind of understood the reality of the situation and like the stakes that were there. Because if you played it like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, rather than your friend is literally going to die in a terrible way in front of you, it just wouldn't have the same punch. So that was those days required long walks in the sun afterwards.
I could totally see that. Would you say you're, an open-minded person to say that we don't know everything and there is a possibility of demons and spirits out there?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, me too.
I think if nothing else, I just find it really cool.
Was there any part of you that you said, damn, that we might actually conjure something real here?
A little bit. I kind of had to put those thoughts to the back of my mind to not freak myself out then and to be in my house. I found comfort, and we did close all the seances every day because the girls all thought that Ceylon was a real medium. We did have to close the seance, which I secretly found comfort in. But then I like to think that, because we were making a movie and it wasn't it wasn't trying to be disrespectful, that it was, we were safe. We were okay.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Now, in between takes, when you guys were in the Zoom session, I'm sure there was a lot of joking around, trying to keep the mood light. Am I right?
Oh yes, because it's very, as I said, it's stressful. It's hard to stay in those moments all the time. So if we had a point where we were getting like a little too intense, that it was maybe affecting the performance, or we just needed a break. One of the best ones, Rob just put on ABBA, Dancing Queen. I was like, get up. And like, we just had a weird dance party alone in our darker living rooms. It was almost like being at a club. I guess as close as we've gotten to a club in a year. We would dance around together, or I remember one of the last nights of filming, and it was quite late. Me and Gemma were finishing our last scene, and we were with Doug and Rob, and we just all started doing like these silly cartoon voices between takes. Like we'd only speak to each other as if we were like characters on Bob's Burgers or some silly cartoon.
It seems to me from the beginning of the movie, before the seance is even initiated, there's that you hearing the strange sounds coming out of your closet. Yeah, it could have been the stuff where you open the closet and the whole bunch of stuff falls out. But there's these little clues and hints dropped throughout the whole movie that you specifically are being targeted by whatever this is. Was that done intentionally?
I think so. I think we had a few more of them that actually got cut from the initial beginning bit. But yeah, there is a real unease with Haley's character in the beginning of the movie, and stuff falling out. She is not comfortable in her home already, which makes me think that there's something more behind. And maybe that's why she wanted to do a seance so badly, was, get something removed from her own house.
Yeah, that's not left for much doubt. You are very serious about this. You want everybody to take it very seriously. And it's not mentioned, it's not spoken about. But we as the audience are left to feel that you do have some kind of a personal vested interest in this that we don't get to find out about. Now, if it does go to a sequel, and again, not reveal anything, do you see the sequel continuing to be filmed as a footage film, or is it going to have to flip to a traditional movie, seeing you, like, for example, I see the beginning of the sequel where you're institutionalized from the trauma that you had to experience.
A little bit like Jennifer's Body, beginning of that one.
Yeah.
I think, and I would hope that it would flip to a kind of traditional filming sense, only because I think we did it in Zoom kind of really perfectly, or we've done it as, really well, that I would hate to then do it in Zoom and it not be exactly the same, or not being able to, tell the story in the same way. I think a sequel and whatever that may be, it'll depend on the story and what medium fits it the best. But I kind of see it as being like, exactly like you said, like maybe being an institution, like following her a little bit more closely, and just the capabilities that, using a full camera team and lighting and, different lenses and kind of all the magic that cinema does offer, I think could create a really cool story, and be be a different film rather than trying to replicate what Host was. It would be like doing the sequel as its own entity.
And I can almost guarantee you, because of the success of Host, the budget for a sequel will be much bigger.
We'll take that trailer.
It will be much, much bigger. When you did get dragged in that scene again that I showed, when you got pulled back in that chair, while everybody else is terrified, you were excited. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. You did not actually fear that we might have tapped into something bad here. It was nothing but excitement for you that you did make contact and you wanted to keep it going. Is that how Rob told you to play out that scene?
Mm-hmm. Yes. That was his direction of being like, we were, throughout the script, Rob had given us all a scare rating for each little scene. So you kind of knew, okay, at this point, your character is very scared. So Caroline's was basically at a 5 the whole time versus my character stays at a 1 or a 2 most of the film. And I think because she has experience with mediums and, is into the supernatural, having something actually happen in your house would be so exciting, because whether or not initially she wasn't thinking it was going to be a demon and something evil. She was thinking it was, who knows, maybe her grandmother, maybe an old friend, or Elvis had come to visit her. So I think the excitement was there just because it's something, you've almost confirming all your, hopes and suspicions that like there is a supernatural world. It's like that confirms it.
At which point did Rob tell you, for your character, that your mood is supposed to change? You're like, okay, this is not fun anymore. This is something serious.
So when Salen drops out of the call, and I don't know if it is as audible in the actual film, but there's from my character, she hears a real scream, a death curdling scream. From Salen at that point. And so that was the point where she's like, oh no, this has actually gone horribly wrong. Like Salen has already told them that it's basically, they've ruined, they've messed up and there's probably somebody there making trouble. And then to hear her and have her drop off like that really kind of makes Haley scared. That's the first time I think she's like properly scared.
Yeah. For me, one of the freakiest deaths is when Rodina's boyfriend drops from the roof dead. That would be like, whoa. I mean, it's...
every time in the film, I always jump at that.
Well, watching the movie, there's so many different scare points, including the very last second. Which one is the one that scares you the most? Which scene scares you the most?
Probably the scariest scene to me is when Teddy's running through the barn and the demon pops up at him, because I always just forget it's coming. That's the one that I've seen the film probably like 10 times by now. And every time I'm so invested into the characters and kind of I'm in the film, that when that comes out and I think it causes his lamp to break and then he's on the ground, that every time freaks me out.
Yeah, for me there's so many, I don't think I could even pick one. Now that last scene that ends on a jump scare, was that sort of influenced because Rob Savage had a video that went viral? Not a whole bunch of info on that, but is that what influenced him to end the movie on that type of scene?
I think so. We had he did a prank on us over Zoom where it was actually similar to the attic scene a little bit, where he pretended that there was some noises coming from his attic, and so he somehow made it that we were all watching on Zoom, and he had cut to pre-recorded footage from the movie Wreck, where it was this donkey child that pops out of the attic, and so that pop really is what made the video go viral, because our unsuspecting faces screamed. And I think he, as far as jump scares go, I know he was trying to avoid kind of the tropes and whatnot, and not just, put in jump scares just because they're an easy gag. But because almost in the fact that there's a countdown and you almost know it's coming, like you can see in the corner that it's going 4, 3, 2, 1, like something's going to happen. And with the clicks of the flashlight, usually you'd think, okay, on the third light is when something's going to happen. And so he, doesn't have it on the third one, it's on the fourth one. But so I think it was, in a way, he was like, well, these, we need a jump scare in this. We need something terrifying and a bang to end the film. But in the sense that he didn't want to just like put it in for putting it in sake. So he, tried to make sure that he was almost warning the audience that it was coming. So, but it still works. It's still scary, and it's still a great way to go. The Zoom call gets cut off, so you don't actually get to see what happens if we fight the demon or not, or if we die.
Did Rob try to tell you guys, sort of in the background, as to, not that we got to see as the audience, but what kind of demon you guys might be dealing with to help you act it out better? No.
No, the only thing we really got was that Polaroid, which is terrifying. I don't think we saw anything of the demon other than the Polaroid photo. And I actually had a moment where I had to take a ton of Polaroids throughout the film, and I had them all stacked up somewhere mid shooting, and I just picked one up and turned it over and thought it was one that I had just taken of an empty hallway, and it was the one with the hanging man in it, and gave myself a real freak out that is actually what I had taken, and had a little panic attack for a second.
In your own apartment too, no less. Now, all said and done, Host is done. Were you guys holding your breath to see what the reaction would it be? Did anybody even add the faintest clue that it would be the top horror movie of 2020?
Not a clue at all. I mean, even when we started filming, it was kind of pitched more that it was probably going to be a short film, maybe a long form short film. It's going to go on Shudder, and how exciting that we get to make something while we're in lockdown. And even when we watched it the day before it dropped, we were all like, oh, this actually turned out really well. It's really good. But it's hard to judge your own work all the time, to be like, well, I think it's good. But is anyone else going to think it's good? And then I think it was the first weekend that we started getting messages, and, reviews started to come out, and just like all these fan, big fan websites, and like Fangora and Empire and whatnot, they, started posting about Host and have you heard this? And Twitter just exploded with people messaging us and tweeting about Host. And we were like, oh my God, I think we've done something here. And then just to see every week since I think it dropped, it's been like, and now it's in New York Times, and
it keeps growing.
Yeah, it's wild. We still get, I think it came out on Netflix in Mexico and Brazil last week or the week before, and that was a huge surprise, because we just, we don't find anything out until it drops, really. And it's in theaters in Croatia right now, and fans will post on Twitter, and it's just the most exciting thing to see and interact with people from all over the world now that have seen the film and loved it.
As far as your career goes, since the film is obviously so popular, are you getting a lot more audition requests? How has it affected your career?
It's kind of good. It's still, I think, taking off, essentially. I think there's definitely been a push. I've had better auditions than I did in previous years. I think because of the pandemic, it's still a bit, is not as incredible as it might have been had we not still been in a full lockdown here in London, and, and LA hadn't been shut down for, months at a time. But I do see that, if anything, it's just been I've been able to talk to people like yourself, and doing all these interviews, and, see kind of my Twitter and my Instagram following go up, and all of that stuff, kind of, even just meeting other directors and filmmakers and producers that have seen the film and really enjoyed it. It's kind of all laying the stones for, I think, something better and bigger to come. So I'm holding out for the end of the year to be a real exciting thing.
Exactly. Hopefully we'll be in a much better place by then. Since the movie has come out, have you traveled back to the States at all to do any? I know we're not doing in-person promotional appearances or that, but have you had a chance to travel back to the States for any kind of work and promotion for the movie?
No, unfortunately, I think just with COVID, it's still, even if I even if we did, I think like, the US was so locked down for so long and had a lot of restrictions, and also then it would have had restrictions coming back to the UK. I was able to go home for Christmas to see my mom, and that was very exciting.
Oh, that's good.
But I was pretty much staying within my within my house in my town in Arizona. So I didn't actually, it's kind of strange because we haven't actually been able to like be around people other than the screenings of the film here in London, to actually experience like the excitement of the film in person with other people. It's all been online still. And even I know I think we're doing some sort of like one-on-one fan in meet and greet kind of thing in the future. But it's all still online just because, the insurance alone wouldn't pay for us to fly the world yet.
I totally get that. Are you a horror fan personally?
So I wasn't before Host. I was a big scaredy cat and would get nightmares from films. I think like I went to see The Grudge, I think was the last horror film I went to see. That was a great movie. The one with Sarah Michelle Gellar, not the most recent one. And I took a blanket to the theater with me so I could put it over my face because I was terrified. But actually, now having done the film, Rob and Jed are like encyclopedias when it comes to horror films. They know everything and they've seen everything. And they would actually, before we do takes, Rob would play us clips from different horror films just to give us kind of a sense of the dread and this scariness that was about to ensue. And from that, he played a few clips and I was like, oh, this looks like a really interesting movie. Like I really want to check this out. And so I've started now to try and like watch more horror, and because of being introduced to the horror community and how amazing the fans are, it's like I feel like I owe it now to actually like get more involved within horror movies. And so slowly trying to work my way through an entire anthology of films essentially. But
so so moving forward in your career, you are not going to shy away from the horror industry. You got a taste for it now and you like it.
Oh my God, it was so fun. I actually think like as an actor, it's not celebrated enough acting in a horror film. Like I was saying earlier, you never get to like scream and yell and experience these kind of intense emotions like you do in a horror movie. In real life that often, or have the permission to do it in a safe environment. And so actually it was thrilling as an actor to be able to do this type of film that I would love to do another horror. I think there's a weird stigma sometimes against horror films, because maybe they're slasher films or it's blood and guts and whatnot. But I think when you get a good horror film, like the stories are incredible and you can just come up with some amazing scripts. Like I'd absolutely love to do more horror.
Now, is it true you started your own production company, Bish Media?
I did a couple of years ago. It's very, I'd say, I started it mainly because I started making my own short films out of grad school. And realized, it kind of needed a production company to kind of umbrella all these films I wanted to make and start writing. And then I've started more recently in the last, this year, trying to kind of build it up to actually be a more functioning production company. But it's a slow work in progress, as acting takes up a lot more of my time than I have to give to the production company all the time. But yeah, working there, I want to be like Reese Witherspoon one day and just run Hollywood.
We got this rather odd question from a viewer, but do you have any connection to country music? They were referencing you enrolled at San Diego State before moving to Nashville, and you kind of got big into country music. What's that about?
I was never in Nashville. That's so funny. The internet, you forget how much stuff is on the internet that you from now. But I did actually. So I went to San Diego State, and before I majored in theater and acting, I had dreams of being a country singer because I grew up in choir, and my parents were had bands and were big musicians. And so I'd always thought I was going to actually be a country singer one day and move to Nashville. And then I took a theater class at San Diego State by Martin Katz, if if anyone knows Martin Katz, he's not teaching there anymore, but he's a legend. And kind of never looked back and thought, oh, this is more what I want to do. I want to create stuff and jump around and pretend I'm seaweed and, play as different people. So now I just think, oh, it'd be great if I could get cast in something where I play a country music artist. That's
That'd
the
be
next
great.
goal.
That'd be awesome. So, do you have like any confirmed projects that are you going to be involved in here soon, or are you still just, scoping out the field for right now?
Bit scoping out. So we did, we've got something kind of come like a small bits that'll be out later this year, that I can't talk about just now.
Okay.
But and then working on actually my own another short film, I think, that of my own, and potentially a TV series pitching around that. But yeah, nothing quite mega yet.
Okay. You were also part of the Has Fallen franchise. What was that like?
Oh, so fun. That was I mean, it was great. We had I got to shoot like small bits, but we were in the White House. Morgan Freeman was there for a bit of it, which he's just a legend,
Oh,
and
yeah.
got to hang out with Gerard Butler a little, and he's a lovely human, just like the nicest. But that was really fun being in the Oval Office set and just being amongst
I,
that group
I,
of.
I love that franchise. It's an action packed, but I love the Has Fallen franchise. Haley, we are pretty much out of time. It's been I can't believe this hour has just flown by. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for your performance in host. Like I said in the chat, clubhouse chat where we spoke the other day, I came across host just by accident. And I'm like, all right, let me check it out. And I just fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with it. And it was amazing. And I thought it was going to be just a B type horror movie. Man, was I wrong. A gem. And hearing Jed speak also as well, he sounds like a brilliant writer. And it's great to hear it. And guys, if you don't know, if you are a member of Clubhouse, Haley and Jed are in there pretty often hosting Clubhouse chats, and you get to hear them talk. It's pretty amazing. I highly recommend it. Like I said, do you have any final thoughts, Haley, you want to share?
Oh, just a big thank you for having me on, John. This has been great questions, really fun. I mean, I can't even believe it's already been an hour, so this was
It
great.
is. We are approaching an hour, and it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in at this special time. Haley, we'll be chatting again. Guys, stay safe. On behalf of Haley Bishop and myself, stay walking, guys. Till later. Bye bye.
Bye.